Okay, as everyone comes in, greetings. Welcome to this week's 30 by 30. We're super thrilled to have our alumni on this call and some of our finalists for our prize this year. We extended a special invitation to you, so we're so glad to have you. For those of you who I don't know, I'm Meredith Walker. I'm the Executive Director at the Texas Business Hall of Fame, and I am so honored to have as our guest speaker today, Paul Hobby. He's the founder and managing partner of Genesis Park. We're going to put his full bio in the chat bar, but Genesis Park is a private fund manager that is well known for public company carve-outs. In that context, he has served as chairman of CapRock Communications and as CEO of Alpheus Communications and Texas Monthly. In addition to his private market activities, he has more than 5 decades of public company experience. And very importantly, he was inducted into our organization last year. His speech is on our website. It's truly one of the best, most gracious speeches we've ever had at one of our induction dinners. And Paul, thank you so much for being here today. And then, of course, I want to introduce our moderator, Joseph Cabrera, one of our award recipients. Joseph went to West Point for his undergrad. We funded him as an MBA at the University of Texas at Austin. He is the founder of the Professionally Offensive podcast, so he is a great moderator. It's a terrific entrepreneurial podcast. If you haven't checked it out, I would encourage you to do so. He's also the founder of Cabrera Toro, which is leadership development through outdoor adventure activities. Is that a good way to describe it, Joseph?
Yeah,
I never get it completely right. Okay.
No, that's perfect,
Well,
Meredith.
and then for those of you who have not been on one of these calls, we kind of warm everyone up with some questions. Joseph asked Paul the same questions we ask all of our legends who have been gracious enough to participate in this series. And then we open it to you all. So if you have a question, send me a chat that you'd like to ask a question, and I relay that to Joseph. There's no need to raise your hand or to send me your specific questions. So we look forward to the conversation today. Take it away, Joseph.
Thanks, Meredith and Mr. Paul Hobby. Super stoked to have you on today. Thank you for the time. So we'll kick right in. What do you consider your greatest achievement to date?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go listen to the Professionally Offensive podcast because that's intriguing. I was trying to get Meredith to title this episode "Trigger Warning," because I tend to provoke. I want to challenge you, and
Trigger warning.
The hypersensitive probably need to leave now. No, I don't try and be obnoxious, but sometimes I'm overly candid, and I usually just see that as a challenge. So feedback, all good. The clash of ideas, iron sharpens iron, all that.
That's right.
That's the easiest question, Joseph, that you're going to ask me. What I'm proudest of is my family, and that's all any of us get to leave. Sorry about that. Bad news. You've heard the cliche about the no U-Haul behind the hearse. And so my daughter's name, my oldest child is named Grace, and Grace, of course, means undeserved favor. And I feel that way about her and my boys and my wife all day, every day. And so, wow, undeserved favor. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's great. It's after we've done a couple of these, and it's amazing to see all the success that folks like you have, and that is generally the first thing without hesitation that comes out of their mouth, which always gives, I know me personally, a recalibration on what the things that I'm doing. So thank you for that, Mr. Hobby. Go ahead.
Just to add a postscript. I mean, this is a little harsh, but sometimes harsh is educational. Literally, one of my mentors in business many years ago, I'm talking about 30 something years ago, I walk in there and he has a sign on his desk, this one of those little plaques. And it said, "No success outweighs failure in the home." And I was like, wow, tell it. Okay. And it was, he just kind of smacked me upside the head with it. And it made an impression on me. And so that's what he intended. That was a trigger warning I needed.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's funny how those things get embedded in our fabric and our DNA and stay with us forever. Speaking of staying with us forever in in some of the historical context, what is somebody in history that you would like to meet and why?
So this would normally be a tie between Lincoln and Jefferson. And, Sam Houston's a close third, but I'm going to go with Jefferson just because he needs the support about now. He just kind of does, and again, I mean, nobody can say that he wasn't a great man. multiversed in all these categories, but also nobody can say he wasn't deeply flawed, which makes him accessible to you and me. Because I got news for you. Joseph and Paul, and even possibly Meredith, are deeply flawed. So again, he's not some icon on the hill, but you can't debate his greatness. You can debate his humanity, which brings it all down to a level that the rest of us can identify with.
Yeah, that's great. And on that same vein, any public figures right now that you really admire, you feel like are doing some good work and look up to?
I am not a cynic. I'm not a whiner, but the list is so short right now. I can't help but tell you the truth. Joe Manchin, and then Kristen Sinema's sort of doing her own thing, and I've met her one time, and let me tell you, she's afraid of nothing. So I guess those two, because they are pioneers in the center. And in politics, they say, things in the middle of the road get run over. We'll see. Maybe they do, and maybe they don't. But what I most admire probably about Joe Manchin is he didn't ask to be the most important man in America. The math of the Senate put him in this sort of heat light. And he hasn't changed, and he hasn't become negative or obnoxious or sarcastic. And he may or may not run for president as an independent. But I just admire the fact that chance put him in this circumstance. It wasn't raw ambition, and it wasn't vicious behaviors that usually fall you to the top of the political bucket.
No, that's great. I do think you're right. Time will tell kind of how that all that thing pans out. And speaking of time, I mean, I imagine it's probably related to the first question we asked you, but treasured possessions, things that you find most valuable to yourself.
Well, you're supposed to say, oh, possessions are not eternal. They're things of this earth. I forswear any attachment to any physical things. That is not true. That is not true in my case. My mother gave me a polo saddle. Hermes is sort of a very chic, expensive French saddle maker. And what y'all all wear is scarves around your neck. In the stores, they have set pieces. They have saddles to show you the history of that company. Well, my mother, bought an Hermes polo saddle for me, which is an unspeakable extravagance. And I have it, and I still play polo. And long after I play polo, I'll still have it in my office or in my bedroom. I've had it like a dog. So my Hermes polo saddle for my mother is my most favorite possession.
Now, Paul, saddles just in general, one of those things, like if you take care of it, it's going to last a lifetime, or do you want to step away at some point because leather does wear that way?
Well, it is true that things wear out with age, but saddles will do right by you if you'll do right by them, and that is, store them in the right condition, keep the leather clean and moist. The tree of the saddle, is it's either a metal or some sort of composite that's not going to rot. So you take care of the leather, and you can repair it also. I mean, repairing saddles gets done, so it'll last a long time.
Yeah, no, that's fair. My wife rode growing up quite a bit, and one of the things I've learned about saddles, they're important tools, and not a good saddle is not cheap either, and they have to kind of last a lifetime. Otherwise, you're probably going to go broke.
Yeah, you learn that when you're young. You're like, I'm going to save money on shoes, and that only lasts for like one pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're not doing that anymore. No, some things are worth spending the money.
That's right. Personal model, something you live by, your North Star.
Well, this is very simplistic. I might have even mentioned it at the Hall of Fame events last November, but I really want to leave things better than I found them. And that includes the world, and that reference goes back to my family because that's all I get to leave the world. But I had to have an executive coach one time. I can't even remember what it was for, but she asked me that question. I gave her that answer, and she looked at me and said, "No, really." And I was like, so I didn't know if it was too deep or too shallow or what the problem was, but it's the truth. And it's an introspective statement, not just an externally facing statement. So y'all can boo me off the stage if I say anything as cheesy as, I want to be a better version of me tomorrow than I was yesterday. So again, I'll apologize for the cheese. But I take that as an introspective and not just an external statement, whether that's my company, family, my profits, my church, school. Just, perfection's probably not on your menu of choices today, but better is always on your menu of choices.
We can always, we had a saying in the service, 1% better every day. And I think that's important. Speaking of getting better and reflecting on your days, when and where are you most happiest? Does it happen to be the Rio Grande Valley?
Well, it's kind of a tie. Horseback, truth be told, horseback is probably the right answer. But on the couch with my wife, watching some silly Netflix is right up there. And then the other thing where I feel peace, I want to be more joyful and I want to be more peaceful, but I'm mostly more just manic. My wife says that I confuse movement with progress, but I feel peaceful on mission trips. And, it's been my good fortune to chaperone a bunch of youth trips where you're painting schools or planting trees or you're building houses or something. And, at night the kids all get together and sing. And I mean, you're at that sort of palms up, take me down moment. So again, I couldn't give you one answer, but there was sort of three.
Two quick follow-ups to that one. One, what are y'all typically watching on Netflix? And two, are you doing the mission trips with the whole family, or is it just you and your wife going out there and doing those?
So we've done them with YWAM, which is Youth with a Mission, which is kind of run out of San Diego, the people that we've dealt with. I've done them with my church quite a bit. And that is taking youth to Dominican Republic or Jamaica or ski trip or something. And then we've done something in Zambia with a group that's based out of Dallas called Family Legacy. So we've done it in various ways. I hope that's responsive.
No, that's perfect. On the topic of just, if there's a talent you'd like to have or get better at, what would that be?
I wish I could sing. I was so humbled. If somebody asked me to do a karaoke duet with them a few years ago, and I was real sure that I was going to kill it. Well, it kind of killed me. It was quite humble. This is not good. I mean, I should have known, because when I tried out for the choir in high school, they handed me a cross and they said, "Big strong boy like you ought to carry something. You're an acolyte, effective immediately." And that is anything to keep me from singing.
Well, I think Carlos Alvarez is probably, I think if you ask him nicely, he might give you some good lessons. He's quite the singer. We've heard, and actually on a video yesterday they were doing at the Hall of Fame, they kind of had a snippet of him, and he's got some good tonality in that voice. Final thing to round out, and for anybody else that's just getting ready, this will be our last one, and then please continue to ask and line up in the queue here on questions. But if you could change anything about yourself, what would that be?
Shoulders. I wish I had shoulders. Like, my mother always said, "You have beautiful Victorian shoulders," which is something a mother would say. But if I had square shoulders, my wife has square shoulders, so my children have a chance. But I just never really had the shoulders that I should have, and it's a terrible injustice. And I'm sure there's a government grant, some sort of reparations out there for me somewhere. But shoulders.
That's the most unusual answer we've had to that question.
Haven't had it yet. Yeah. That's European fit, though. I would say if you're a suit person, that is what they call a European fit. So maybe your body is just meant to be somewhere else, Mr. Hobby.
We'll just leave it right there.
That's right.
But you're kind of a diplomat for somebody that has a podcast named Professionally Offensive, but I appreciate it.
We try to use, just small spurts of offensiveness. All at once is really hard. So we're going to go right into guest questions here. And from our audience, we're going to kick off with Anna. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Anna Alvarez. I'm one of the finalists. I'm also an aspiring philanthropist, first-gen college student, and founder and owner of Social Sophie Marketing. So I would like to hear, what are the three main pillars that you live by as an entrepreneur and CEO and servant leader?
It's so hard not to lapse into cliche there. But cliches get to be cliches because there tends to be truth in them. But I'm just real concerned with the people around me, you know, because I'm going to shape them, they're going to shape me. You know, having said that, it could be the most wonderful person in the world, and if I wasn't value added, if they were trying to test a new diabetes drug, you know, I would be cheering from the sidelines. And I don't want to cheer from the sidelines. I want to do things where I can magnify the effect of my capital with my effort, my experience, my skill sets. And so some of those things, they're noble and they're wonderful, and they've even got great people involved, but I don't add value. So I guess I want to be around great value projects, you know, great people. I want to be around things where I add value. And then the third pillar is, I don't know what the third pillar might be. Maybe this is a weird diversion, but it's been my privilege to do prison ministry for many years. And prison ministry is interesting because you're not Anna Alvarez, or you're not Paul Hobby, you're just Anna, you're just Paul. And, you know, there's an anonymity in there that's sort of liberating, but it also, you have to grind things down to their pithy essence. Again, without being cliche, because nothing sounds more cliche in prison than cliches. The educational attainment of the audience is widely varied, as you can imagine. The things that they can affect in their life, the choices they get to make relative to your life and mine are very, very limited. So you have to really crush things to their essence. And I guess my essence would be my third pillar, and that is the choice each one of us have every day is, are you going to broadcast light or broadcast darkness? Well, kind of easy for a lot of us on this call to pop out of bed and look at our young, strong, beautiful face and bodies and all the vigor and favor and intellect and achievement. But those guys, man, all they have is attitude. You know, all they control is their honor and their attitude and their behavior towards others. And so, yeah, they think I'm ministering to them, but they're really ministering to me. It's like, wow, how do they do this? How do they show up every week with a smile on their face? Because I don't know if you spent time in TDCJ, but I'm a former prosecutor, and for a lot of other reasons, I've spent a lot of time in prisons. And trust me, you don't want to be there. That's your primary takeaway for the day. Also,
don't go to prison.
Thanks for the question. And our next one up is Amir Maribi or Maribi. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah, it's Murby.
Murby.
Yes, Mr. Hobby, I know that you've played a critical role in the acquisition of Reliant, and that's for me something that's really, really huge, because we're currently right now we have an MOU with a Fortune 500 company for an M&A. I was very curious to know, kind of from after that experience that you've had and the success that you've seen, what advice would you give in terms of navigating through an M&A? What are some things to keep in mind?
So, have a plan. Don't buy anything, even if you're merging it with something you already have, without a 100-day plan, because that'll sort of suss out the real issues and figure out what the new org chart is and who can live with it and who has to be explained. And so, making a plan other than just sort of saying, gee, this industry is consolidating, I think I'll be a buyer or a seller. So I think have a plan to exploit continuing synergy is the second part of that idea. Because, roll-ups in certain industries to say, okay, well, I'm going to achieve some synergies, which means I get to fire a couple of accountants and a couple of lawyers, and, firing lawyers, nothing makes you feel better than that. But the point is, these are one-time synergies. If it's a roofing company, you didn't get to eliminate trucks or ladders or guys on the roof or girls on the roof. If there is industrial logic, make yourself play that out through the years and say, are there continuing cost efficiencies? Are there continuing revenue efficiencies? Because again, to push things together and fire a couple of people in the name of consolidation, that's doesn't end well. It doesn't end well. So I think in the case of Reliant, I could talk all day about that. NRG was one of 3 or 4 IPPs, which means independent power providers in the deregulated merchant world. And buying Reliant was sort of our first spin towards the consumer, where we decided, we want to be closer to the consumer. We want to be retail. And now we are, with the purchase of Vivint Smart Home, we have 8.5, 9 million people on our products, whether it's power or home security or other things. But Reliant was a great deal because it was the beginning of that pivot. And more than you really want to know about power, but you can't be in the retail power business without having a huge balance sheet or borrowing somebody else's. And they didn't really have their own balance sheet. So they had wrapped their balance sheet with a credit wrapper from Merrill Lynch, I think it was. So they were giving a lot of their margin away to Merrill Lynch. Well, there was synergy number one. We didn't need Merrill Lynch. We had a balance sheet. We got to keep all that juice that Merrill Lynch was taking in the name of being a credit backstop for Reliant. So beautiful deal. Thank you for reminding me.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering my question.
All right, next up is Daryl Morris.
Hey, Paul, thanks for being here with us today. I'm a 2017 scholar and actually used my scholarship to acquire my first business post-graduation. So I'm actually here at that business. We just relocated. So I bought a cooking school here in Houston, Texas. So my question is kind of a different slant on power. When you look at power and you get to the level of success that you and some of the other legends in the Texas Business Hall of Fame have achieved, it's either given, it's either transferred, or it's either taken in some regards, or it's earned, right? And so how do you maintain being humble and not using that power for evil in so many regards? Like how do you make sure that you keep your feet on the ground, knowing that you now could have this newfound power that you could use at any given time?
Thank you, Daryl, for the implicit flattery there, but I don't think of myself as powerful, and I don't aspire to it. Maybe I once did. I want to be an influence for good things, and I kind of have to do my own stunts. You don't know that much about me, but I've never had a huge corporate balance sheet, and I lost the closest election in Texas history in 1998, so I don't have any public authority or huge balance sheet or massive staff, or I have to do my own stunts. And one of my kids put that in their college essay, and I almost cried because they tell you, keep talking to your kids, they're listening, even though they're not pretending that they are. And when I saw that in his college essay, I was like, oh, that's amazing. So it's been a privilege to do my own stunts, to build my own relationships, to create my own work environment with people I enjoy being around. So there is this definition of a great man is you're defined by the weapons you possess but do not use. And I guess that's what you're talking about. And so that's what humility is. How you get there, I don't know, but I think it starts with having a mama that reminds you every day that you're a child of the universe, but so is everybody else. So get over it. So it probably starts with my mother.
Thank you.
Paul. Let's see here. Next up is Courtney. Take it away, my friend.
Get off mute. Hopefully I wasn't saying anything smart alecky earlier since I wasn't on mute anyway. Such is my my norm. I am very interested in anytime anybody has a passion for a non-mainstream sport. I'm always so interested in how they got into it. I mean, it's so easy. We're all surrounded by baseball, football, and now soccer. But polo is hard to get to. What got you interested in that?
Well, we're a horse family. And so, the church that we went to most Sunday was the Church of the Horse Show, wherever that might have been, Nacogdoches, Dallas, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Junction, you name it. If there was a horse show there, we generally went. And so that was our family thing, but I was riding Hunter Jeffers at that time. And then there was a moment where I stopped riding because I wanted to play football. I played football in high school and college and did some other things. But I still knew how to ride. And my father had been shamed into buying a polo pony by friends of his that played polo and said, oh, this is the real manly equestrian sport. And you have to do this. Well, he didn't like it. And I still don't know why he didn't like it. Maybe he was past the point of learning or was afraid of the contact and the speed. I don't know. But the guy that ran the polo club knew me and kept calling me in the summer times in college going, we're always looking for young guys who can ride. You can ride, and I'll teach you to play polo. And there's a horse out here with your name on it. So what's difficult about this? And so I went out there and started playing polo, and I've been doing it really ever since. And my wife cannot believe it that at 62 that I'm still doing this. And I'm like, well, honey, I don't know how to do this. I've tried golf a couple of times, and it's not a good thing. It's not pretty. So there will be a terminal point where I need to not do this, but it is really, it feels like who I am and what I am. It's a beautiful game, and it's an excuse to be around horses, and it's a team sport, and there's just nothing about it I don't like other than the danger and the expense. And so,
Right.
oh well.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. See, we got Carissa up next.
Hi, everybody. Can y'all hear me okay?
We got you.
Perfect. So my name's Carissa White. I am one of the finalists for the scholarship this year. I'm currently still in school, almost finished, aspiring business owner going into the lending industry. And the biggest thing I'm trying to do right now is network within the industry to become established while I'm still in school. So my biggest question for you would be your strategy on networking throughout your career. And what you would suggest, coming into this huge industry, what should I do to kind of a strategy I should take to network with everybody to build my relationships and to build my business within the industry?
Well, lending and credit generally, I would say that's huge, huge, huge. So I think you need to narrow it down a little bit. Are you lending against houses, appliances, cars? Is it life, whole life, term life, property and casualty? I'm sure you have a niche.
Sure. Yeah, I'll actually be going into manufactured housing lending.
Okay. All right. Well, I would meet your customers, and because it's all going to come backwards from them. But the problem with that sector is you don't know who your customers are. You have to. It's a derivative sell. They have to want a manufactured home, and then they figure out what their borrowing opportunities are. We have a similar situation in a solar finance business where we don't spend any money on branding because all of our branding comes through a derivative sale of people that want solar on their roof. That's the first decision. So I guess who's going to expose your customer to you? So that would be the mobile home salesman. So I would go to a mobile home salesman convention and pass out what are safe tchotchkes today? You can't get out. Something memorable. But that's my best thought is, I think your indirect salesperson is going to be whoever sells mobile homes.
Thank you.
Paul, we got 2 more in the queue here, but we know we're probably coming up on a minute here on time. Do you have a few extra minutes or do you have a hard stop?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
My next appointment canceled.
All right. Sometimes good for cancellation. So, all right. Well, next in the hopper is Hasm.
Yeah, hello, Mr. Paul. I'm parked. I'm not driving. I know it looks like I am, but I pulled over. This has been a great call. I can relate to in many ways, Mr. Paul. I'm also engaged in a family business, and wish I had wider shoulders. But more than ever, I think I resemble you in some ways of loving to roll up my sleeves and add value. So being part of building something and, you know, dabbling into different industries and projects throughout my career. So, you know, currently working with Honeywell, after leaving them for 2 years, started 2 businesses that are still operating. One of them is a family turned business and remodeling. And then the other one is in smart home construction. But my question is, with that persona in mind and looking up after you, does that have a connection with the equity financing part? You know, because I picked that up from you as one of the things you like to be part of adding the value rather than just maybe lending the money, or is there a connection between both? Because I am a stronger believer in equity financing as well.
So let me clarify the question. Is there a connection between equity?
Wanting to do, yeah, and wanting to, you know, be working on multiple projects that all kind of funnel into a vision, a larger vision in the future. But to do that, obviously the partnership is, you need partnerships to make it work. You can't just do it on your own. So is there a connection with a persona of mine where I always like to do something new, funneling into a long-term vision and looking for equity partners to get that accomplished?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. But let me harken back to something that Jeff Hildebrand said at the dinner. And if you didn't see his speech, it's certainly online on Meredith's Texas Business Hall of Fame website. You know, he said several times, be an inch wide and a mile deep, and that is become a subject matter expert in something. So, you know, you can't add value until you know something. And the world is wide. We all can't know everything, even with ChatGPT. And so, you know, to develop some mastery or some skill or some niche in which you are deeply ingrained and well experienced, that's how you add value. So the thing that's painful in life is when you see these grasshoppers, you know, these people who they've got a satellite deal one moment, and then they've got a sprinkler deal the next moment, and then they've got a real estate deal the next moment. And the only thing that you know is that they don't really know much about any of these things. They're just repeating somebody else's PowerPoint presentation. That does not inspire confidence. So, you know, find something that you like and learn it, and the world will beat a path to your door. But I have been something of a generalist, but within that, you know, I think I have vertical competencies. But those vertical competencies, those are everything.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense.
All right, one more here to close this out. Gabe Ogden, go ahead, my friend.
All right. Can y'all hear me?
We got
You
you,
good?
Gabe.
All right. So first of all, Mr. Hobby, just thank you for your time and being here today and spending a couple extra minutes to answer your last question. But I'm graduating soon, but also working full time and trying to like bootstrap my own business. And I really liked the whole thing about, you know, if you don't have your family and the relationships you have a priority, like you really don't have anything at the end of the day. And with all these new kind of time obligations, I was wondering if you had any tips as far as keeping them a priority and reminding them that they still are while trying to juggle all these time requirements.
Well, I don't want to say to do something that I didn't do, but I think that we did a pretty good job of having a family dinner. So, you know, it's such a trite, pedestrian sort of point, but if you don't have time to have family dinner, even if you have to go back to work afterwards, there's a problem. There's a problem. So, you know, to build boundaries and to say, you know, every possible night, you know, at least 5 or 6 days a week, we're going to eat dinner as a family. And if I can't organize my life around that principle, there is a problem. It means that I don't want to eat it, which is that's a tougher reality to face.
I like that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, killer question, Gabe. Thank you, Paul. I'm going to turn it over to Meredith, but it's been a pleasure being able to talk with you today and greatly appreciate the insights.
Really fun, Joseph. Thanks so much. Thank
Paul,
you.
one person who had asked a question early sent me another question for you, and I am going to ask it because you turned me on to an amazing author, Ryan Holiday, years ago. And I'm a huge fan now. She was asking what best entrepreneurial book you've read lately, and if you'd share that with everyone. We'll just close with that question.
Oh, gosh. I am a big fan of Ryan Holiday's. In fact, I'm a fan of his bookstore. He has a bookstore in Bastrop called The Painted Porch. And The Painted Porch is where Seneca basically started Stoicism. And Stoicism is not a religion, it's just a philosophy. It's a time allocation device that it really drills down on the notion that spend time with things you can affect. And these other things, let them go. But your reaction to things that you can't control is wasted. Wasted calories, wasted emotion, wasted effort. So again, stillness is the key. Is probably, I think, the best of Ryan's sort of stoicism.
Yeah, I like that one. I just read the self-discipline one, and that one, maybe just because that's such a challenge, that's not been my favorite. But well, thank you so much for today. Your answers were unique and so interesting, and we're just so grateful for your time. And